Today, I will be going over the ultimate eBay guide for phone flippers. I know a lot of people are tentative to use eBay. I'll say firsthand, it's an amazing platform and you should trust me with this guide because not only have I sold over hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of phones and electronics on eBay, but more importantly, I've gotten screwed. I've been an idiot. I've absolutely literally screwed up everything there is to screw up with this platform. Somehow I still have my account. But I've been this close to losing it multiple times, made all the mistakes so that hopefully you don't have to, because when you screw up on this platform, it really does suck. And I just want to make sure that this doesn't happen for anyone else. So that's why I've made this video. I've put together everything I know about the platform into one video. And I will say on top of that, if you're not using this platform already, you are leaving thousands of dollars on the table. You might be like, oh, well, the fees, how is that even possible? I'm going to cover all that in this guide. Trust me, if you're selling back on Facebook Marketplace or even Swappa, while those platforms are not bad at all, I just think eBay, it's the number one used marketplace for things to use. If you're not using it, you can just take my word for it because I've used all those other platforms. You're leaving so much money on the table, and I'm going to show you exactly why and how you can use it properly so you don't end up getting screwed. Just a quick background with me. I sold trinkets. I think that's the best word to describe what I sold on eBay. Back in the day, I started doing eBay. I guess I did phone flipping a little bit in high school, made some money, and then I switched over to just selling random things from thrift stores on eBay. I would even pick up a couple things from Marketplace. And I remember I took this screenshot years ago because I was like, this is insane. $1,000, 90-day total. I thought I was the absolute man. And fast forward to today, I probably still think I'm the man, even though I'm not. But I've now just gone all in on phones and electronics, and I actually hit a 90-day total of over $100,000, which I thought was pretty cool. Of course, that is revenue, so I could have just sold things and made zero profit on it, but trust me, that's not the case. On average, my profit margin is around 22% with phones and electronics, so within 90 days, that's a pretty good amount, and that doesn't even factor in the devices I sell elsewhere to direct buyer and things like that. So this has been a really good business for me. I know it's been a great business for a lot of other people, and I'm just trying to help other people with this business as well because there's so much opportunity. It's not very saturated at all, and everyone has phones, everyone has electronics, so everyone's a potential customer, and it's just such a great business. If you're not doing eBay, this is one of the keys to scale. And again, this has helped me, this journey, it's helped me learn everything there is to know in regards to eBay, flipping on eBay, because like I said, I've flipped random things like bowling balls and clothes, anything at the thrift store. I would go look up every item. And after I would look it up on eBay, if I saw a price discrepancy and knew after fees, I would make a pretty decent profit. Pretty decent back then, being like between 15 and 40 bucks, then I would buy it. Fast forward to today, on average, I make about $85 profit margin selling phones and electronics, which I get a lot of on the daily. And so the culmination of both of those processes, those experiences, I've just sold so many things on eBay now, shipped out a bunch of orders. I understand the game. And again, more so just because of all the mistakes I've made. And I would just really hate for you to have to go through what I went through. I'll tell some stories later, but just understand that for now. I'm going to break this video down into 3 categories because it is going to be very long. There's a lot to cover, but I'll just do 3 categories for you guys. And then there will be a bunch of sub chapters within those categories. First one being use cases of eBay. The second one being the fees, because everyone hates the fees. And then third, we'll talk about some best practices so you don't end up how I did. First up, in use cases, we'll break this down into these parts. 1, why you should use eBay. 2, I'm going to go over listing items and the 2 ways to do them. 3, we'll talk about utilizing offers on your listings. 4, appraising items with eBay. And then 5, connecting with buyers. Second category, the fees. So we'll talk about fee breakdown. We'll talk about a store plan. We'll talk about being a top-rated seller. And then finally, avoiding increased fees, probably the most important part there. 3, best practices. So avoiding scams. Everyone knows there is some scam issues with eBay. There's a lot to watch out for, as there is with any platform though. 2, handling returns, shipping packages, feedback, and then finally, customer service. So with that being said, we'll get right into it. Let's talk about use cases for eBay. First of all, why you should use eBay. Well, as I said earlier, it's the number 1 worldwide marketplace for used things. You might be like, oh, well, what about Amazon? You can sell stuff on Amazon as well. eBay is just so much more beginner friendly. The process for becoming an Amazon seller is absolutely brutal. There's all these checks and verifications you have to go through. I did it once. I actually got in, and then even then there's category restrictions when you're first starting off. So I don't even know if you can get in there and sell electronics right away. Maybe they changed it now, or there's some sort of further application process. But eBay is just so simple. Regular people like you and me can just create an account and start selling stuff the same day. So that's why eBay is so great. It has the number, and it's a global marketplace. So they do global shipping. People can buy from you anywhere in the world through shipping forward services. So it's literally a global marketplace, and it clears all the other ones. It truly is a monopoly. And that's why it can be quite annoying, but there's trade-offs. So because it's a monopoly, you have to stick to their rules, which it sucks at first, but once you realize the trade-off of trying to use like a Mercari or a Swappa, it truly is just such a no-brainer. The volume of buyers and sellers on eBay clears all those other smaller competitors. So you got to use eBay. Second, $5 billion a year in electronic sales on the platform alone. There's no other platform that's coming near that. Like I said, maybe Amazon, but in terms of just things that you can set up an account and use the next day, eBay absolutely clears. I guarantee you Mercari, Swappa, none of those are even touching that number. Probably not even at $1 billion. Certainly not at $1 billion, I would say rather. eBay is just so good. There's so much volume. You can just get a little slice of that $5 billion. You're going to be doing pretty well for yourself. Third, you can sell things so fast on eBay. I used to sell things only on Marketplace. Sometimes I'd have same day flips. Other times, I got to the point where I was just buying so much on Marketplace, and I lived in a smaller community at the time. There just wasn't enough buyers in my area to keep giving me the cash. So I had all this cash tied. All of a sudden, I don't have money to buy phones that I knew would be profitable for me to buy them at that price. Seeing like, 13 Pro Max, which at the time, maybe I could make $100 on, and I knew it was an easy buy. But I didn't have the cash to buy it because I had like 10 phones listed and no one buying them. And so if I can use eBay, have things selling very quickly, and the money is just going right back into my bank account, now I can just focus on getting more devices as opposed to trying to squeeze every last dollar out of it. I like to move things within 3 to 4 days tops. If it gets longer than that, I start to get a little anxious. So eBay's perfect for that. I completely solved that issue for me. Also, great prices for cracked, damaged parts, all that stuff. I know a lot of people who I've talked to actually got off a call with a guy in the group yesterday. He was telling me that he doesn't even buy cracked or like super scratched devices. And I'm just thinking, bro, like that's just so much money left on the table because, for example, I'll buy an unlocked 13 Pro Max or something, and at the time of this recording, maybe it'll sell for like $420 on eBay. Well, I'll sell them with a cracked screen for like $390, $380. And normally you would think it'd be way less valuable, like $150 less. It's just not the case because on Marketplace, it's not easy to sell damaged phones. They just don't sell well at all. But on eBay, there's just a huge collection of refurbishers, resellers trying to buy those, and they make small margins just repairing en masse and then flipping them themselves. So you can avoid all the work of trying to repair, learn how to repair, and make really good profits buying, selling cracked, damaged parts devices. Now, with the exception being iCloud locked devices, you cannot sell iCloud locked on eBay. That's an absolute no-go, and you could actually risk your account getting banned. I actually threw up an iCloud locked MacBook, and I put the IMEI or serial number rather in the description, and it like immediately got flagged, got taken down. And so I imagine if I had done that again, I could have gotten suspended, banned. So I absolutely won't do that again. Like I said, a lot of this video is going to be a culmination of my mistakes. Please don't make them because it was absolute misery what I went through with some of this. I don't wish anyone else to go through it. Continuing has other uses. We will cover this shortly. This is all about use cases, this part of the video. So we'll go over some of those. Now, what to sell and maximizing profit on eBay, cracked and broken. So I like to sell my good quality devices, meaning your A, B grade, new in box, open box. I love to sell those to direct buyer because it's quick and easy. The margins are very good. Maybe not so much margins, but the prices are very good. I guess compared to eBay, I'll probably make around the same, maybe slightly less, sometimes slightly more. and it's quick, it's easy. The money goes straight into my bank account. There's no fees. There's no risk about maybe a buyer wanting to return an item or anything along those lines, because returns really slow you down. They suck to deal with. And so if I can, I'll just move it to direct buyer. In a perfect world, if I got the same prices for cracked broken as I did that other stuff, I would just sell everything to a direct buyer, but it's just not the case. The cracked and broken phones, I mean, you're looking at, for newer models, a minimum of $100 extra profit selling on eBay as opposed to any other platform. So absolutely sell your cracked, broken, even the heavily scratched phones, like the grade C scratched, your grade D doesn't turn on eBay. You'd be surprised. You'd think a phone's absolutely worthless. Throw it on eBay. There's a buyer for about everything on there. It's really unbelievable, the things that get bought and sold on eBay. You could have a phone that's probably like split down the middle, and you'd find someone who would buy it on eBay. Bad battery health as well. And in general, anything that gets docked by a direct buyer, I like to just throw on eBay, and not like a small dock, but something that's considerable. Bad battery health being one of those. So if it's like 79% battery health, anything below 80% where the service message shows up in settings, just throw it on eBay. And I typically do, I would say $30 to $40 better on average than a direct buyer's newer model phones. And again, any significant dock from a direct buyer in terms of prices, I'll just throw it up on eBay and I'll end up doing better than the direct buyer price. It's not like a $5 difference for the convenience. $5 difference, I would just go to direct buyer. I'd say it's significant. You're looking at $30, $40 different. And of course, that would be a sliding scale depending on the price of the phone. So it wouldn't be a $30 to $40 difference for a phone that's only worth $50. But you probably understand what I'm saying. Generally speaking, middle to upper end phones, that's what you're going to be looking at. And then gaming consoles, iPads, other electronics, almost always I throw these on eBay. There's a ton of buyers, even gaming consoles for parts. You get a lot of PlayStations, Xboxes where the HDMI port doesn't work. There's plenty of buyers for those because, again, there's all these refurbishers, people who fix things up and resell themselves. And that's a super competitive niche, which means the prices are very high for things like that. People making thin margins on repairs. Always really good if you can just list stuff like that, and it sells so fast. The broken stuff sells very quickly, even for gaming consoles. iPads are just like phones, the cracked screens. If you price it correctly, it'll sell well. Other electronics as well. I buy a whole plethora of electronics each and every month. It's always so random what I get, but generally it's stuff like gaming consoles, gaming computers, of course, a bunch of Apple stuff. I like to send the watches to direct buyers typically, and your sealed in box iPads, stuff like that. That'll go to direct buyers. But for the most part, I like to sell other things other than phones on eBay. I actually sell Samsungs typically on eBay as well, with the exception being maybe some sealed in box stuff, just because I find the prices to be much better typically than direct buyers. So that's something you'll have to get a direct buyer sheet and compare with sold listings and see. But that's just typically what I do. So I'm just going to share what I do, what I've done with the platform, and how I've succeeded. And then, of course, I'll reiterate, no iCloud. Do not sell iCloud locked devices. Please just find a direct buyer for iCloud locked or MDM devices. So managed devices, iCloud lock, just sell those to a direct buyer. So we're going to talk about listing items. There's two ways to list an item. One, you have your eBay guided listings, which I'll show you in a second here. And then copy existing / completed listings. And since I always recommend listing from your phone, I think listing from your computer doesn't make that much sense. I won't demo this on the computer, again, because it's so easy to just snap photos of stuff on your phone. And don't worry about having the most amazing photos or anything. Just a couple clear and clean lighting photos will do. If there's any issues, make sure you list those. But yeah, don't list from a computer because you'd have to upload all those images and it would just take way longer. I'm going to cut to a screen recording of me on my phone, and I'm going to show you exactly how I do this, the exact method I use for listing phones and electronics. And that way you can see the easy way to list, how I've had success with listing items on eBay. All right, so here I am inside my eBay app. Yeah, I know my 90-day total is a little down. I actually just sell a lot more to direct buyers these days. I prioritize getting stuff that goes to them. And my numbers have been honestly roughly the same doing that. So still around, 10 to 12K a month in that range currently. Regardless, I'm going to show you two ways to list an item. Now, one of these ways is going to be more for your Apple, your Samsung, say phones, iPads, that kind of thing, tablets. And then another way will be for other electronics. And I'll just go ahead and go through that. So first things first, if you go to the selling tab on your eBay account, you can just press this list an item option. And then what you would do, I'll just use an iPhone 16 Pro Max for this example. And alternatively, I could just put iPhone 16 and then search, and it's going to give me all the iPhone 16 models. So I could put in Pro Max and it would just do it that way, but this honestly works a little bit better. Now you would select your network. For this example, I'm going to do AT&T because I want to show how I list carrier locked devices. Of course, you would select the storage capacity and then whatever color it is. In this case, it'll be black titanium. Now condition, if I'm selling a carrier locked device, I sell it for parts only. And the quick reasoning for that is you don't know if it's going to go blacklisted or not. So obviously a carrier locked device, chances are it's financed. Even if the person you bought it from swears up and down it's not, it doesn't matter because so many times people will just say stuff. And unless you can 100% verify, you should sell it for parts only. And I know that sounds terrible. You're like, well, selling for parts is going to be worth way less. Trust me, it's not. It's actually almost the exact same. Maybe a little bit here and there, but overall, it's just going to save you the headache of, I tried to squeeze every dollar, and that's what I focused on at the beginning. It just comes back to bite you because the next thing you know, someone's opened a return for you selling them a blacklisted phone who's went blacklisted. Now you're in huge trouble. They could escalate it to a case with eBay. Just save yourself that risk. There's a bunch of resellers who buy from eBay overseas. Blacklist doesn't apply overseas. So if you just sell it as blacklisted, essentially, you're going to have no issues doing that. Yes, you might make slightly less, but I'm telling you, it's actually super minimal. It's almost not less at all. So in this case, we will sell this for parts that are not working. If it was new open box, I would recommend selling to direct buyer, but for some reason, if you're selling that on eBay, you would obviously select that condition properly. And then if it's unlocked, we could just sell as used unless it did have some other issue. This is why we're selling it for parts. So in this case, we'll do parts only and the listing will load. Now, the first thing will be to upload photos. I'm not going to upload photos just because it's going to pull up my camera roll. I don't know what I have in there recently, but in terms of photos, what you would do is just take a couple clean photos in good lighting. If it has some like scratches on the screen, I would try and get a good photo of that. You could even shine a flashlight on it if you have to show that. And then what I always do, I title my listings the same way. So in this case, iPhone 16 Pro Max, 256 gigabyte. And then I always put the carrier afterwards. There's no like perfect way to do this. It's just what I do and it works well. And I think as long as you put the key details in the title, you're going to be fine. But you should absolutely steal this from me if you've never done it because it just works. So after I do that, I always include the color. So we selected black titanium. I would put black titanium. And in this instance, parts only /read. Read is a keyword on eBay. You'll see a lot of listings over time that have the word read in it. That's just short for read description. And since the title has a limited number of characters, putting read description oftentimes isn't going to fit. So just put the word read and eBay buyers will know to read the description if that's the case. So at this point, you would have uploaded your photos, get a good photo of the front, the back, maybe a little side angle, and then any issues it has, make sure to take a photo of those. Maybe the battery health is bad, take a photo of that. That's what I like to do. Heavy scratches, maybe some dents, just include a photo of it. Decrease your risk of return. Be super honest. You want the device to arrive to the person who buys it from you better than it was listed at. So this is how I would list it. And then we won't have to change anything. The cool thing about this is once you select those, eBay does a good job. Their software here, they just list a bunch of stuff with the iPhone. Now in the description, assuming this is carrier locked, I would say in all caps, list the issues first. IMEI not guaranteed. Check IMEI. If it was unlocked with no issues, I wouldn't list that. I would say very good condition, light scratches on screen, or maybe no scratches. Be sure to include some details on the scratches. And I would do the same here. So we'll assume this one's in good condition. It's just carrier locked. Light scratches on screen, overall good condition. Just be as transparent and honest as possible. That's always going to be a good practice. And then what I would do is I would list the IMEI. And then I would list the battery health. And if you don't list these things, you're just going to get 1,000,001 messages from people asking you what's the battery health and what's the IMEI. I just list these so I don't get my inbox absolutely spammed by people who I don't want to respond to. Pretty straightforward there. Of course, if there were more issues here, you would want to list these in the description. Again, make sure you cover all the bases there, but that's going to wrap up the description. So at this point, you've got the photos, you've got the title, category, condition, item specifics, that should already be taken care of. Next thing is going to be pricing, which is a very important section here. First things first, it's going to give you some comparable prices. When in doubt, just list maybe slightly higher, but turn offers on. That way you can gauge prices. And remember, you do want to price your items to sell, so don't get greedy here. You're not going to magically sell something for way more than it's worth. The cool thing about eBay is it shows these. Now, I would have maybe checked out some comps beforehand, but if you hadn't, this is a good way to see. So some similar ones, basically the exact same thing, right? AT&T, check ESN. So there's a wide range here. Personally, I would probably try and start at like $6.99, which is a little bit on the higher end. But I'm able to do this because I would turn offers on right here, allow offers. And there's a lot of reasons we allow offers. I'll go into more of those in the future. But I would probably do 600. I imagine, all those listings were selling for more than 600. So I think 600 would be a very good price point there, a safe play. And obviously $6.99 is on the high end. I imagine I would probably get a little bit more than 600, and allowing offers to come in lets us have a little bit of control over who our buyer is. Again, I'd put more on that later. The rest of this you don't have to really deal with. Absolutely do not use auctions. Auctions are awful. It's just a guaranteed way. Even though it's fun, this isn't necessarily about having the most fun, because I think making money is more fun than the auctions. Yeah, it's cool to see all the bidding happen in the last second, but you'll just make less. I see auctions all the time go for less. I believe there might even be some fees associated with them. And also, if you're running 7-day auctions, to make less, it just makes no sense. You're waiting longer to get less money. So double negative right there. 2 wrongs don't make a right either. That's just double wrong. That's terrible. So don't do auctions. I've never seen a scenario where auctions work for people. Maybe for like really small items, trinkets, things like that. Just don't use auctions for phones and electronics because they're in demand. They will sell regardless. You don't need to use auctions. Now, as far as shipping goes, I use third-party shipping, and I recommend you do as well. It's cheaper. It's easier. Yes, eBay will send you a label through here, but I would highly recommend not using this because then it's going to make you put in all these package details and your shipping service beforehand. Doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to offer free shipping every time. Shipping costs $1. You might as well, if you're going to charge shipping, it doesn't make sense to, because you could just add that to the item price and then just offer free shipping, which always looks better, in my opinion, to a buyer. And so that's the one reason. The second reason is I don't think eBay shipping rates are very good, so it's going to cost you more money. And third, it's just less organized. It requires you to get all the details right up front before you even pack the item to ship. In the order of operations, that just doesn't make much sense to me. Do free shipping. I'll talk about how you can ship later. I actually have a video in the course about my exact shipping method, how I pack up items, the software I use. I'm going to touch on it briefly later in this video, but that's all you need to know. Just use free shipping. We'll show you how to do, or I'll show you rather, how to do the shipping later. And boom, that's basically your listing at this point. Everything's there. I don't promote your listing because they will charge you, and then you would just list your item. I'm not going to list it here because, again, I'm not selling this actually. This is just a demo. Now, that's method 1 for listing. Let's say we're going to sell that exact same iPhone 16 Pro Max. And now, generally speaking, if you're going to sell an iPhone or Apple Watch or something like that, I recommend just doing it through what I just showed you, the eBay listing thing right there, the list an item button, because it's smooth, it works, it's easy. This method I'm showing you now would be more so for computers, things that have a little bit more nuance and specifics. Gaming laptops, typically I'm looking for comps through the search feature. But again, for the sake of just simplicity, getting the point across for understanding, I'm just going to list the exact same item through a different method. That way you kind of get how it works. So in this instance, I'd put an iPhone 16 Pro Max AT&T. I would find one for parts. There's a lot of people that sell for parts. And what I would also do is filter, show more, and I would filter by sold items. So now, as you can see here, I would probably look for one that's very similar. And if I couldn't find one, I would just go used and then change it to parts only. So I'd be able to edit that. But this looks like a good one. So 16 Pro Max, read description. It's listed slightly differently than ours, but it's basically the same thing, right? I imagine it's an ESN issue. And so what I can do is tap on that listing. And now I have this button here that says sell one like this. And just like that, it's giving me the exact title, all the same things. I will have to go in here and put the condition, which would be for parts. And this is so great for things like laptops because there's RAM, there's SSD, there's refresh rate, there's the graphics card, there is the processor, the CPU. So it's for finding a one-to-one replica. With iPhones, it's easier just to go through that because they guide you through it. They don't guide you through it for maybe a Lenovo laptop. So you'd have to go in, find the exact same thing, maybe even the same thing with like a PlayStation or something. This would be easier to do. And of course, the process would be exactly the same. The cool thing is when you copy that and sell one like this, you get the exact title, all the item specifics. Of course, if it is a slightly different listing, you would change it to make sure it's accurate to yours. Like this one is the black titanium. Maybe it was the white. You would just change the color. And then, of course, we would put in our same description, same pricing, same shipping thing. And that's how we would do that. So 2 ways to skin the cat here. Both work well. I think some work well for different things. Generally speaking, for phones, just use the list an item button through eBay because it's so simple. It just walks you through it. But if you're having trouble with that, this is a great option for other items. So I've used both. I use both to this day. It just depends on the item. And that's how I list items on eBay. It's actually quite simple. Hopefully that was helpful. So we just went through those listings. We're going to talk more in depth now about allowing offers, why it matters. I actually have a section on that coming up. So we'll get to that. But for now, I also have put together something, phoneflippers.com/eBay-sales. If you go to this link, and you've maybe seen this if you've watched my free course, but this will be super helpful for you. It's just a free resource. Basically, everything I talked about in terms of listing, I went into a little more in depth, gave some different scenarios here, took screenshots of everything. Also included some stuff as far as creating an eBay seller account. If you've never done that, you might find that to be quite helpful. Also some stuff on store plans, creating listings, all of that. It's all in here. The same stuff we went over, selecting models, condition. And then in terms of photos, I just went super in depth on literally every aspect of the listing. That way you can just do exactly how I do it. Everything I could possibly think of to say for how I think about things and how I do it, I put it in here, not trying to overcomplicate anything, but if you just want that info, I figured I'd give it to you. I spent a lot of time just going through a bunch of these, making documents like this. That way you guys have things that are tangible resources, maybe things I forget to say in a video like this. But when I get to sit down and write it, I can just spew out all the information over time. That way it's just clear and concise and it's in one place forever for you to reference. And that way it's clear. Some people prefer reading things as opposed to maybe listening or watching a video. And I've just given examples like scratch phones, what I would do for this, show everything there is in terms of a listing, description, go in depth on that, even give examples, even give like a template of what I would do, super specific annotations on photos and things, go in depth on all the arrows, like what these red arrows represent, what I do for each of these categories. And of course, I went through the basics of this, talk about offers, talk about free shipping, and then, of course, avoiding scams and things. There's going to be some stuff I go over more in depth on scams within this document, but all in one document. If you just wanted this entire video boiled down into like the key points, the simple stuff, without going super in depth, you could just find it all on this document. A lot of good info on here. You might as well go get a copy of it, save it to your drive. It's just completely free for you guys. I think it's a reference that you'll find helpful. Again, that is phoneflippers.com/eBay-sales. Now we're going to talk about offers and negotiation finally, because I know I've been saying I'm going to get to this. Well, here it is. I turn offers on, and not everyone would recommend this. Not many people even do this, I don't think. The reason I do it is, one, just for protection, most important. And then two, I can price a little higher, kind of gauge some interest. If I'm not 100% sure it's where it's going to sell at, I can say, okay, I'll put the buy it now price here because, maybe it will sell, and sometimes it does. But if not, then I have a whole bunch of offers for basically what it would go for at that buy it now price, or a buy it now price that would sell very quickly. And then I can filter through my buyers or potential buyers, and I can probably choose the one with the best feedback, or maybe one closer to me, as I know the shipping rate will be a little bit cheaper. I'm on the East Coast, so if someone ordered from me on the East Coast, I know, one, it would be cheaper, and then two, probably a little less risky for it to get lost or something, as opposed to on the West Coast, it'd be more expensive to ship out there. It would take longer, more hands it would go through, just more chance package gets stolen, lost, something like that. Again, as I said, I like to gauge interest with offers. So I have this example here. It's a 15 Pro Max listed for $610, parts only. Put offers on it, maybe as low as 500. You might get a few for 500. Maybe I wouldn't want to accept 500. Maybe I'd be losing money there. But over time, I should see some at 550, 570, 580, depending on how I listed this, right? If that's the price range it was going for, chances are I would get some. And then, of course, I could pick the buyer I want based on that. And as a newbie, maybe you're brand new to eBay, you're going to be a target for scams. I'm going to talk all about avoiding all the common scams I've seen. I've been scammed about every way there is to be scammed. When you see feedback on accounts, which is just the eBay rating system, you're going to want to sell to a guy who has 200 feedback over someone who has zero. Someone who has zero, who has a brand new account, it doesn't mean they're always a scammer. Maybe they just made an account to buy an item. I've sold to zero feedback buyers plenty of times where that's the case. But if you're selling, something like this, a 15 Pro Max, 16, 17, higher cost item, that's what scammers are going for. So when I sell an item and I see an offer from a guy on a $200 item who has zero feedback, I'm not that worried about it. But when I see it on a $600, $700, $800 item, that's when I start to get a little scared, and I'm really not willing to do that. So when I allow the offers to come on and I see a guy, maybe in this example, I get an offer for 580 from a guy with zero feedback, or 560 with a guy with 250 feedback, I'm going to take the 250 because it's not worth the risk of losing all that money. And again, it's not always the case. I've sold expensive items to zero feedback buyers, but you kind of just have to know how scammers are thinking. What are the items they're looking for? How are they trying to get you? And you also have to understand eBay is not really going to protect you in this regard. So you have to look out for yourself. I learned this the hard way once again, and I'll go more into depth on the scamming end of things. But just so you know beforehand, this is one of the reasons why I like to turn offers on. And then don't just accept the highest, maybe wait it out sometimes, especially with iPhones, electronics in general. You're going to get a bunch of offers right away because there's people who run softwares that track new eBay listings. There's a bunch of new iPhones sold daily. I think iPhones sell almost every second or 2 seconds on eBay, which is insane. So there's a bunch of listings coming out. People are sniping this platform, trying to find good deals. They're going to shoot out a bunch of offers right away. You'll start to see that you're getting a lot of offers from the same people over and over again. And what you want to do is just wait it out sometimes. Because for example, maybe on this item, I've sold items around this price before where right off the rip, I'm getting offers for 550, 560, maybe even a 580 or 590. And wow, that may seem like a good deal. Take it right away, even if I'm profitable. Other times I know, okay, well, maybe it'll just sell for what it's listed at. And oftentimes it does. So there's like a fine line of waiting. I wouldn't just accept an offer that you're profitable on right away. Maybe just give it a little bit of time, see what you can get. And then if a day passes and that's your best offer, maybe take the offer. If you don't like it, drop the price of the item about $10. I usually, for items around this price, I go in every day and I just drop them by $10. And again, that's because I like items moving in and out very quickly. Don't like cash held. And then 2, it's just because I probably overpriced it a bit. So I need to list it at a price that will sell to begin with. And so I have to go down and edit the prices till it sells if I don't have an offer that I like on it. So that's kind of what I do there. The next thing is going to be appraising items. So another huge use outside of selling items, probably the biggest use of eBay is just appraising items. A huge issue in the group we've had, for whatever reason, is I have all these people text me like, what would I make more money on, this phone or this phone? Well, first of all, you should just buy all the phones you can buy that you would make money on in a profit margin that you're okay with. And second of all, there's no like best phone. It's just like whatever makes you more money. But of course, like I said, buy both. But it's one of the biggest issues is you got to know what the item's going for. The whole premise of this business and the flipping business in general, if you're flipping anything, you should know what you're going to make on it, or at least have a pretty rough idea close to what you're going to make on it. That way you're not going in blind. You can't just buy a phone, list it for more, and magically make money. It doesn't work that way. You have to know what it's going for and then undercut the market value. So one of the best things eBay offers is the ability to sort by sold listings. So you can actually see on one of the biggest platforms in the world, biggest marketplaces, what things are going for. It's the whole premise of the entire business. Now, I get it. I'm not trying to sound like a dick because I do remember starting out. I completely get it. I didn't understand this. But you have to know what it's going for. Don't just buy phones. Like it just kills me when I see guys message me in the group telling me they've been sitting on a phone for a month and it's not selling and they don't want to drop the price because then they're going to lose money on it. It's like, bro, you're going to just have to take your L and learn from it, because some of the best lessons you'll learn come through losing money, unfortunately. Now, hopefully you can listen to this and not make that same mistake. To this day, I still lose money on deals from time to time, because I guess I get lazy with appraising, or I just, see something on eBay. But I use eBay almost always. Outside of direct buyer sheets, I'm using eBay to appraise items, specifically stuff that isn't on direct buyer sheets. And an important thing to note here is to assume the lowest is what you will get. Now, I'm going to demo this for you guys so it makes sense. Just sold a 16 Pro Max, by the way. How about it? But let me do something different than a 16 Pro Max. So I'll do PlayStation 4, just to give you an idea of how to appraise an item on eBay. Now, what you don't want to do is see this right here. This is a PS4, now rare old firmware. I guess that makes it more valuable, but it's going for $342. So you don't want to look it up, see this and think, oh, they're going for $342. I'll just buy it at like $200. No. Scroll down to the filters. We're going to go click sold items. Now you can see what's sold on eBay recently. So you've got this one, PlayStation 4, 500 gigabyte. This just sold for $80 plus 20 shipping. So around $100. This will probably cost him about $10 to ship. And then you figure about 10% for fees, because it's like 9.35%. But then usually there's some other things that ends up being around 10% typically. That's how I just do it for quick mental calculation. So $100 minus, 10 minus another 10 for shipping comes out to about 80 for this console. And so whatever he paid for this, let's say he paid $30, made 80, that's a $50 profit. It's super important you calculate the fees mentally, as well as shipping costs, or maybe you have to go buy a package or a box to ship it in. All that should be considered before buying it. Make sure you know if you wanted to make $50 on this, you would want to buy this at $30. If you wanted to make 60, you'd have to buy it at 20. And if you had to spend like $5 on shipping supplies, well, all of a sudden you would want to buy this at 25 to make 50. So understand that. And then, so there's going to be a ton of variation with stuff like this, gaming stuff, because there's going to be games, controllers, cords, different things can be different prices. This one you can see here, it's going for less. And this one's going for 85, no shipping. This one's going for about 90 when you add up everything. Now it does have a controller and a game. So you're going to understand, you want to look at a few of these, and instead of trying to average it out and go for the middle, or maybe see which one, even worse would be, you see the most expensive one and think, oh, I'll get that. No, don't do that. Find the one that's going for the least and just assume you will get the least or less than the least. That's the best mindset to go in with. That way you can appraise properly. Now, something like PlayStations, they're selling pretty consistently, give or take, at around the same price. I'm guessing if you had a controller and the cables like this one and this one, these are just the regular system. This one's obviously the Pro 1 terabyte, so there's going to be variation there. But if I was just selling a PlayStation with one controller and the cords, I would assume, okay, I can probably get 99.99. That's what I would probably price my device at, if not $5 to $10 less. Just to be safe, it's always better to err on the side of caution. That's how I would appraise a device like this. And the more you look at, the better of an idea you'll get. Another thing you want to do that's very important is look at these sold dates. And this is a very key point that often gets overlooked. So October 9th, October 9th, October 9th. So many October 9ths. That's today. So there's obviously high demand for PlayStation 4s. Now, you'll find with most electronics, there's high demand. Like I said, iPhones are selling like now. 5 just sold on eBay. Same thing with all Apple products. Anything like that, mainstream electronics, going to be in high demand. Automatically broken, working, whatever. So you don't have to worry too much about that. Now, where I've really screwed up recently, and you can, again, learn from another one of my many mistakes, is with more specific niche down stuff. So gaming laptops is another thing I sell. There's a bunch of gaming laptops that sell, but maybe there's not that many Acer Nitro 5s that sell, or maybe there's not that many Alienware M13s or whatever the specific one is. And I'm just using that as an example. That may not be the case. Or a specific HP laptop, because there's a million HPs, a million Lenovo's. It's not like the MacBooks where there's one a year. They just release a million of those suckers, and I don't even know what the difference is. But that's where you're going to have a specific model number, and you may see oh, these are selling for a lot, but there hasn't been one that's sold on the platform since, July, and it's October now. So that's something to consider. And it doesn't mean it won't sell. It just means maybe there's not many that have been listed on eBay. And so I wouldn't just take whatever it's sold for as what it goes for. I would actually offer significantly less just to be safe. Because look, they're not selling well. To sell it quickly, probably going to have to lower your price by a good bit, unless it's some sort of super rare item. Chances are it won't be. It's just, and there's two types of rare. There's rare that are like hard to get, high demand rare, and then there's just low demand, not popular, and that's why it's rare, because not many people bought it to begin with. So understand the difference there. That's my biggest key point there. When I'm filtering by sold listings, I'm looking at price 1 and date 2 and trying to get the most accurate comparison. And then again, I'm assuming I will get the lowest. And if you just keep that mindset and you understand that, you're going to be just fine appraising. And just like that, that just solves the whole problem of not knowing what things go for, because you can do this with iPhones. Now you know what a specific iPhone goes for, and you can list it accordingly. And then also appraise accordingly. So more importantly is you know what it goes for, so you can offer the correct price. Now, if it's going for $700, well, say I want to make $100, I figure 10%, so $630, maybe $620 after shipping, probably offer $520. And that's a good mental frame to have. So that's how you appraise with eBay. That's the method I use. I appraise all the time with eBay every single day. It's just so important you have this down. It's one of the many, many use cases of eBay. And like I said, outside of selling things, probably the most important and useful one. The next use case is going to be connecting with buyers. So a lot of big domestic and overseas buyers on eBay. One thing you'll notice when you start selling a bunch of phones and electronics, especially if you have offers turned on, you'll start getting a bunch of people from Portland, Miami, and Delaware buying your devices. And you might be like, well, why is this? Well, it's because they can technically ship it within the US and then it gets forwarded overseas because there's some sort of mail forwarding service in those big regions. There's more of them as well, like Doral, Florida as well. There's a bunch. You'll start to see the same ones popping up over and over again. I remember when I was first selling, I was like, this has to be some sort of weird scam. Why is there so many Delaware buyers? And then I looked it up online and it finally made sense to me. Found an explanation in an eBay forum. So that's why that's the case. And there's so many buyers. Like I said, the broken devices, the carrier lock devices, bad ESN, it doesn't matter. There's so many buyers on eBay. You'll find a buyer, especially for a high demand product like iPhones, PlayStation, stuff like that. Stuff that's selling every day. The broken stuff will be selling every day as well. Over time, though, you're going to want to notice who's buying what from you. Is this a repeat customer? And eBay actually has a little green text they'll put when someone buys from you multiple times. It'll say repeat buyer. And so you might want to over time start seeing, okay, interesting. They've bought 2 AT&T phones from me. And I actually have a guy who buys all my AT&T stock that's A or B grade. And he buys it for well over my direct buyer prices. And now he's a limited quantity, so I don't really give that out to people. But there's people like this all over the world that you could definitely find. You could get in contact with. I have a guy who I sell broken iPads to who I got from eBay just from messaging him. Next thing you know, I'm texting him on WhatsApp. And whenever I get a broken iPad, iCloud locked iPad, MDM iPad, I just send him a photo, send him the IMEI, tell him the issues, gives me a price, and it's much better. So I make more money having a network of buyers that can pay more for specific things. And that's just one from paying attention to who's buying what, messaging these people on eBay. And so that's something you can do as well. And I just told you the story of who my buyers are. And again, you can send a screenshot of your WhatsApp. Maybe they'll get back to you. But chances are, I've noticed they will just reach out to you. If they've bought from you multiple times, they'll probably say, hey, contact me. They'll send you their WhatsApp, or they'll be like, we're a large quantity buyer of X, X, and X. Do you buy, these things consistently? How many units are you getting? A lot of the biggest buyers in Hong Kong and really across the world, South America, they're all buying stuff on eBay because they find a bunch of deals. And also what they're trying to do is establish camaraderie and then have people just ship stuff to them directly. So that's kind of how they run their businesses. They find suppliers through eBay, people selling a lot of quantity, and they end up doing a lot of business that way. You can take advantage of it by connecting with buyers. It's something I've done. Might take a while to get there, but it's another huge use case for eBay and a really good one at that. Next, let's get into everyone's favorite topic, the fees. So we just covered that category, all the use cases of eBay, how I use it, how you can use it, all the ways that it's useful. Let's talk about fees, because fees absolutely suck. It's when I talk to people and I'm like, why aren't you selling on eBay? Everyone always brings up the fees, and I used to be in that exact same position, so I don't blame you for thinking that way. But with all the utility it has, over time, you start to realize the fees aren't so bad after all. And especially when you factor in how much more you can make by selling the broken stuff on eBay, it actually makes up for the fact that yes, you do make less than selling on Facebook. When I used to flip on Facebook, the scratches didn't matter, or the battery health. So I would have a phone, whether it sold for $700, but it had bad battery health or scratches on the screen, on eBay, that'd be like $200 less, and direct buyer, even less than that. Facebook Marketplace, it was still $700. It didn't matter. People don't care, especially local market. They just need a phone. That stuff only really matters to suppliers, things like that. The cool thing is with eBay, it's give and take. And also if you're selling on Marketplace, what you're going to do is just sit on things for forever waiting for a buyer. And then you also have to do all this time messaging people. We all know what a pain that is. eBay, I don't really message anyone back. I'll get a few messages here and there, but I know people will just buy it eventually. So I don't have to do that too much. And with Marketplace, then you have to go meet up. So it's the messaging, the meetup. It's the biggest headache. People will stand you up. They'll tell you to come drive 30 minutes away to meet them. You've been sitting on an item for forever. You're like, yeah, I just need this thing gone. Then they don't show. They block your number. So there's none of that with eBay, thankfully. We'll go ahead and break down the fees, because this is what everyone trips out about. And it does suck. I'm not going to lie. It does suck. And there's ways to make it suck less. So we're going to go over those. So the final value fee is 13.6% on your total amount up to $7,500. You're not going to be selling an item most likely for more than $7,500 on eBay. If you are, that's pretty sick, but also kind of scary. I'd be scared to sell something that expensive on one order. But 13.6%. So if you sell something for $100, naturally that's going to come out to $86.40, which doesn't sound terrible. It really doesn't. But then when you factor in, okay, if the item was $100, you paid $50 for it. You could sell it on Marketplace probably for 100, 120, 50, 70, like that. All of a sudden you're going on eBay. Now it's going 13.60 that they're just taking away from you. Then you have to pay for shipping. Shipping supplies comes out to like $80. So you made 30 when you could have made 50 or 70 on Marketplace. So people get into this and are like, man, this sucks. Why am I doing this? Well, such a convenience once you get your quantity up. And how do you get your quantity up? You start shipping things out so you have more time to focus on getting more units, getting more devices. So it's give and take. It's going to suck at first, but then once you scale up by doing, running ads, getting more leads, you're going to be wondering what you were doing that whole time on Marketplace. Trust me, I went through the same thing. You just got to trust me because I've been there, and it sucks at first, but you're going to make more money in the long run. It's just a trade-off you have to make. Now, to make the fees a little bit better, one of the things you can do is buy the basic store plan. eBay has a bunch of offers. In this case, you're just going to need the basic store plan tier. It's not too expensive. They have some that are more expensive. It's not going to be worth your time or your money personally. The store plan, though, it lowers fees for select categories. So phones, laptops, and tablets, gaming console categories all go down from 13.6 to 9.35%. And it only costs $21.95 a month. If you do the quick math on this, that's $520 worth of stuff that you have to sell to break even. That's like one phone, maybe two. So absolute no-brainer there. If you sell more than $520 worth of stuff a month, which should be basically everyone who flips phones, that's again, one or two phones in a month, then it's a no-brainer. You would literally make your money back, or at least break even by having a basic store plan. So it's definitely worth the money. And that's again with an annual cost. I think monthly is like $26, $27. I would just go ahead and bite the bullet on the annual if you're going to be in this for the long run. Again, it's a no-brainer. So in our same example of $100, it would now be $9.35 off. So instead of that 86-ish, it would be $90.65 that you would keep. It doesn't seem like that big of a gain, 86 to 90, but over time, especially, I've had months where I've done over $30,000 worth of sales on eBay. That adds up considerably when you factor in a whole 4% difference. It's significant. And you get more free monthly listings. Now, I believe there's something to be said about when you start off on eBay. I know I had to contact them once I sold over a certain dollar amount or a certain number of listings, I had to contact them to raise my limits for some reason. Now, with the basic store plan, maybe that's just automatically done. That's what it's saying at least. So you can just do that. I can't remember exactly how it happened, but there may be an instance where you have to raise them, and it's super easy. Just contact them and they'll raise your limits, because why wouldn't they? You're selling on their platform. They want to make more money. They get more money if you're selling more stuff. So that's cool. And then the next way to lower your fees, and the final way, is top rated. If you keep your service metrics high, which I'll get into service metrics here in a second, you can actually qualify as a top rated seller, which has its perks. One, you have to agree to 1-day handling among some other terms for top rated plus. So the biggest one is just like top rated, but then to get top rated plus, which lowers your fees and gives you this badge on your profile, which helps, with sales and things. People see you're a top rated seller. You have some sort of terms and conditions you have to follow. There's 1-day handling. So you have to make sure as soon as orders are being bought or made, basically, you have to start fulfilling them very quickly. You can't be sitting on a sold item for like 2-3 days. 1-day handling, there's some other terms as well, but I don't think anything is too strenuous. The 1-day handling is the biggest one. I think you also have to put returns on. Now, you can put returns off, but you still have to fulfill returns anyways. It's more of like a mental thing for buyers, people buying from you that think they can't return, but really eBay is going to make you return it if the buyer wants to return anyway. So you might have higher return rates just because it shows that you accept returns as opposed to not, but it doesn't change the fact that you have to accept them anyways. Then if you are into this, your service metrics are high, this might take you a while to get to. There's a certain threshold you have to hit top rated, but you would get a 10% decrease in your final value fees, which again, it adds up over time. So that 9.35% goes down to 8.42%, which is overall so significant from the original 13.6%. So 13.6% fees are brutal. 8.42%, not so bad. And like I said, it adds up over time. So it's something in the future you could get to top rated. I'm top rated currently. I don't even know if I've applied for top rated plus. I probably should, but 1-day handling can be tricky. I just want to make sure it's something I can handle. And for the 1%, I don't know, it's 10% of 9%, but it's like a 1% difference. I probably should do it. I just haven't done it yet. Anyways, that's how you can do it. And then we want to avoid extra fees. And I'm going to go through 2 stories of me being an absolute moron, much to the enjoyment of you and much to the dismay of me. But I have to tell these so that you don't go through what I went through. And these are super important. If you're selling on eBay, you need to understand this. So what's going to happen is if you screw up, and eBay never tells you this, you just think feedback, oh, my feedback's good, I'm chilling. Well, next thing you know, you've like screwed up somehow. You didn't know how you did it. And your current seller level is below standard. And this happened to me. I just logged in one day, got an email. It's like, hey, we reviewed your account and you're below standard. It's like, below standard? What does that even mean? Well, I had too high of cases closed without seller resolution, as you can see on the bottom here. And there's multiple ways you can get this. Now, there's transaction defect rate. If you're doing a good job shipping, this won't be too much of an issue for you. Late shipment rate, super generous with handling time. I think it's like 3 days. You should never be late on shipment rates. Tracking uploaded on time and validated. You're going to be fine with all these. Most of this is like common sense stuff. You get an order, you fulfill it. You have nothing to worry about. But I had canceled some orders from buyers who had 0 feedback on expensive items. Why did I do that? Well, I don't want to sell these really expensive items to a new account when I had been scammed in the past. So it's common sense. I'll just cancel this, make it some excuse, relist it, let someone else buy it, because I'm not going through this again. I know eBay is going to side with the buyer no matter what. So I'm not doing that. I got to look out for myself, because screw eBay. They screwed me. They didn't help me when I was scammed. I'm going to just look out for myself. And again, I'm going to talk about the specifics of those scams in the future. This is just a good story to understand that. So I log in and I have too many cases closed without seller resolution because I had canceled orders for being out of stock. And that's like, it's not a case closed without seller resolution technically, but it's docked under the same thing. And because I had done that twice in like a month, eBay does it on a year scale. And I had maybe like a couple cases closed without one case maybe without seller resolution already. Well, next thing I know, this became an issue. And actually, I think maybe it was the transaction defect rate, but regardless, it was one of the two. I think it was transaction defect rate. I was close on the cases closed without seller resolution, but they gave me a defect because I canceled for out of stock. I didn't know that was a thing. I thought I could just do that. But if you cancel for out of stock, you're screwed. Now you can cancel for issue with buyer shipping address, or buyer asked to cancel as a reason with no penalty. So now I know that if I see that again and there's a zero feedback buyer I'm trying to look out for myself, I would cancel for one of those two reasons. But I had canceled orders, and next thing I know, I'm below standard. So the main point is I'm below standard. I have to get above standard. The problem is eBay doesn't check your account for a whole nother month. And then if it passes, then it's a whole nother month before it goes into effect. So at a bare minimum, 60 days with my account having penalties. Now, what are the penalties? Penalty 1, I could only list a certain amount of items, and I had already hit my quota for iPhones. Well, this is my livelihood. I can't even list iPhones anymore, so I'm screwed. Second of all, there's a final value fee penalty. So I had the store plan. I'm down at like 9% chilling. Next thing you know, it's like 14, 15%. At the very least, it was back to the 13%. Well, that's significant because that's adding up like crazy over time. I'm paying that extra penalty fees because I've had below standard service metrics. And again, they never tell you this when you sign up. You don't know. So now I know, and I'm scrambling trying to figure out what to do. I'm like, I just got to make a new account. I make a new account, and I'm trying to get my feedback up real quick. So I'm like bidding on some stamps for like, 50 cents. I'm like, I'll just pay the money, buy these stamps. Hopefully and I'll just message the buyer, say, hey, can you please leave feedback? Once I get a little bit of feedback, I'll probably be able to sell stuff. No problem. Account gets banned for suspicious activity, like right off rip. And I'm still out here buying phones, but I can't sell them. So next thing you know, I'm getting low on cash, and I'm like actually in the worst situation, absolute bind. So I start using my brother's account, had to switch some things around, but thankfully I was able to list up on his account for the next 60 days rather. And in that 60-day period, I had to get my transaction defect rate under a certain point so I could use my main account again. And meanwhile, I'm using my brother's account. It's working. The problem is his account's newer than mine, so it doesn't have the same level of standing. Well, his funds rather on his account get held for like 30 days or until a few days after the item delivers because he's still a new seller, and that's what eBay does. So I have like 10 grand tied in my brother's account, but I'm still listing stuff because I have to. And I have to wait for forever. And I'm trying to make do. Almost had to take out a loan to buy more phones. In the meantime, just like barely scraping by on what my direct buyers sending me every week. And once that cash hits, I'm spending it all on more stuff. It was an absolute nightmare. Well, beyond that, on my main account, I have to get this transaction defect rate under a certain point because it was like, a certain percentage. So I bought this huge pallet of video games, junk video games that were worth like $5. Well, it costs like $6 to ship them. And then after the fees, I'm losing like $2 to $3 a game. Plus I'd spent $150 on a pallet of like 75 video games, but I knew if these all sold, the percentage of defect rate would go under where I needed it to be. So I listed all these video games. I have a photo somewhere on my phone of me with not 100, but like probably 20, 30 packages in the back of my car, these video games that I had taken a loss on to not only buy them, but on each one I was losing an extra $2 to $3. So all in all, I was losing hundreds of dollars selling these video games. But I figured, okay, what will sell pretty quickly and what's cheap to buy? It was video games. So I was selling these for dirt cheap, just tried to get them all out. And finally, over 60 days, using my brother's account, having all my funds held, I was finally able to get back on my account. And it was an absolute nightmare. Lost so much money, so much time. But that's that. So the biggest points here are don't cancel orders for being out of stock, and then just review the service metrics because it's probably always changing with eBay's policy. Understand what can get you on that transaction defect rate, and also cases closed without seller resolution will also put you below standard. Do not close cases without resolving the issue. So if someone requests a return, you accept it. If someone opens a case, you resolve it. If USPS lost your package, you refund the buyer. Otherwise, you're just going to get your account shut down and be screwed. So just take it on the chin and deal with it. There's trade-offs. eBay is a really good platform. You just have to play their game. And it sucks, but once you learn that, it's going to be way better for you. Story number 2, more recently. So I'm over a year in at this point of selling on eBay. Well, I've actually been selling for years, but phones and electronics exclusively a year now, over a year. And just recently, a couple months ago, I get another email from eBay out of nowhere, and it says, you had high item not described return rates for laptops and computers. Not laptops and computers, tablets and laptops, because that's a category. And I'm like, okay, and I click on it, and next thing you know, it says you will have increased final value fees for these items going forward until I get the percentage down. Well, I had no idea that was a thing, because I had guys message me saying, oh, it didn't come with a charger, even though I didn't put a picture of a charger or anything with it. And I was like, dude, just return it. Because he was wanting, like, this guy bought an iPad for me and wanted like $50 because there was no charger. I was like, dude, I'm not giving you $50, just return the iPad. Well, if you start accepting all these returns and you have too many compared to the rest of people on eBay in one category, all of a sudden you're going to get docked. And so now I'm paying way higher fees on laptops and tablets until I can get those return rates lowered. And I just didn't know. There's nothing I could do. A lot of the stuff that got returned wasn't even my fault. Every now and then you're going to screw up. There's stuff that happens. I didn't test things well enough and I didn't notice a certain issue. It just happened. So sometimes it's my fault, but there was a bunch that happened like in a certain span where I was honestly just getting screwed. But the items were getting sent back to me. So it's like, whatever, I'll just ship it again to someone else who's not an absolute pain to work with. And that came back to bite me. I should have just resolved it. I should have just, taken it on the chin, as I've said, just giving him some money back for that charger and live to see another day. And that's just an example. There's been many returns that happen in a span that just got my numbers too high, because it wasn't always the case. But I had a streak of stuff like that, and I was not handling it well, not putting the customer first, and came back to bite me. So I'm just going to have to slowly try and lower those metrics until my fees go down. But for the time being, it's costing me hundreds a month, because I sell beyond phones. The number one thing I sell is tablets, like iPads, and computers, laptops. And now I'm certainly paying the price for that, because I was arrogant, because I didn't know, I was ignorant, and I wasn't being as good of a seller as I should have been, even though it necessarily wasn't my fault on some stuff. There was plenty of stuff where it was, and I'm certainly coming back to feel the consequences of that now. So don't let it come back to bite you like it did me. I didn't know this. Now you know, hopefully, so don't let it happen to you. That's going to be a great segue into the best practices segment of this. And I've already explained some of them, but this is going to help you avoid the headaches and the extra fees, because the extra fees just screw you. When you add it up over time, it's an absolute killer to your business. Now, first thing for best practices, we want to avoid scams at all costs. As I mentioned before, turn the offers on and then just pick high feedback buyers, especially when starting off. Over time, you'll hit a threshold where you're not going to get messed with by scammers. They absolutely prey on new sellers, low feedback sellers, people who they identify as not that experienced. That's just what works typically. You're going to have a higher success rate scamming someone who hasn't sold thousands of items on eBay, someone who's new to the game. You're going to be targeted if you're a complete beginner. Just be super cautious, put your offers on, and just pick high feedback buyers. As a new seller, like I said, you will be targeted, so use that. And then always beware. Sus messages, people asking you things that don't necessarily sound right. And when in doubt, ask ChatGPT, Google it, because it's probably been on an eBay forum somewhere, and you could find someone who's had something similar happen. New address requests. You get messages from people that say, hey, I just moved addresses and forgot to update. Could you send it to this one? Sometimes that's legitimate, but tell people, okay, you got to cancel your order and then order it again to the new address. And that's how you'll really know. And if they don't do that, you got to be careful. Maybe contact eBay, because it's totally against eBay policy for buyers to request to send it to a different address. And eBay automates a lot of their processes for an open case. So what's going to happen is you're going to ship it to a different address that's on their account. And they're going to open a case with eBay and say, hey, I never got my item. What will eBay do? Well, they probably won't even have a person on it. And if they do, whether it's a person or AI, they just look for one thing. Did it show up to the address that was ordered? They're going to look at the tracking number, like, oh, nope, it arrived somewhere else. It didn't arrive there. So they're going to assume that you sent it to like a dummy address, and you're going to pick it up and take it back. And just like that, they're going to get the package and they're going to get all their money back. So they're going to get your item and get it for free. And you're going to be out both ways, because you're not going to get your item back or your money back, and you're going to be screwed. And that's probably going to be, third, a case closed without seller resolution. So 3 negatives right there. Next up is going to be fraudulent returns. Now I've had multiple of these. I guess one of them is more of a fake return tracking. The first one, and again, I've had pretty much everything happen to me. I sold a computer, $500 gaming computer. Buyer wants a return. He was like a 1 or 0 feedback buyer. I was like, sure, you can have a return. I go to get the return, it says it's delivered, and it's these little bow ties and these like this super tiny bag. It's a computer, and I open a case with eBay. I'm showing them the photos. I'm like, okay, surely they'll resolve this for me, right? They'll see this and they'll know what's up. Well, I get an email the next day or two. And it says, we've closed your case in favor of the buyer. So they got my computer and they got my money back and I got the ping on my account for that. And it's still on there because this was less than a year ago. So again, you just get screwed so many different ways. You have to protect yourself, but you have to do it the right way. So that's going to happen. And once you get to a certain point, again, that won't happen, but just try to avoid those low feedback buyers for expensive items. Again, you'll get to a point where you're just not preyed on. 0 feedback buyers, that was the one I was talking about. There's so many different ways they're going to try and get you fresh accounts. To this day, I'm very cautious, but I have sold a lot to 0 feedback buyers. You just want to understand there's a certain price point. If you're going to scam someone, you're going to try and get a lot of money. You're not going to just go for like a $200 item typically. So be careful with that. Fake return tracking is another one. So I had another item where they sent me the return. I sent them the return label, but then they sent it back with some sort of fake tracking that showed it showed up, but it really didn't. And thankfully on this one, I was able to contact eBay and they could see in their system somehow that it didn't actually arrive to the right spot. So I got my money back with that. So you should be able to be safe with that if it was the exact same situation as mine, as long as you contact eBay. I'll throw in one more thing here, which is partial refund scammers. There's a bunch of people that know how it is as an eBay seller. They're going to try and just nickel and dime you. So they'll get an item and say, oh, this was wrong with it, even though it wasn't. And if you don't do it, they might open a case. And so you have to just gauge at that point, okay, I can offer this guy a partial refund for $20. That's what he wants. Now, sometimes these are legitimate, but I'm talking in terms of scams. You know it was not the case, what they're saying, and they're wanting some money back. You have to decide, is it worth trying to fight tooth and nail for $20, or should I just, shove my ego down, take my losses, take my L, and give him $20? That's something you have to decide on for yourself. I'll say from experience, it sucks to let people walk over you, but in this instance, sometimes for $20, you just got to live to see another day. And 99% of all these issues will go away with about 40 to 50 feedback, maybe even less than that, and just a little bit of experience. Again, try not to learn the hard way. This video is basically made just to help you move past all that from the jump and not have to deal with any of it. Of course, every now and then there's going to be something bad that happens. It's just inevitable. Even if you do a perfect job as a seller, someone's going to be mad about something. It's like about handling returns. Now, you can turn returns off, as I've aforementioned, but you still have to accept them. On my account, I say I don't accept returns. But if they want a return, I'm going to have to give it to them. It's just how eBay works. I don't know why that's the case. It's how they made the platform. Someone opens a return, I will have to accept it, and I will accept it right away. Now, I do think where I get an advantage here, and I mentioned this earlier as well, is if people see you don't accept returns and they don't know how the eBay platform works, then they might assume they just can't return it, which one would mean they're less likely to buy, but two, they're also way less likely to return. So if they're sure about you, they see you have good feedback, it's like, oh, okay, doesn't allow returns, but I see he's got good feedback. I trust him. Of course, you should be doing good business anyways. You just lower your risk of a return that way, which would be the advantage of saying you don't accept returns. But it doesn't really matter because you're going to have to accept them anyways, again. So hopefully that makes sense. You might as well leave it off unless you're trying to go for top rated plus, in my opinion. eBay will always side with the buyer. So accept all returns and do not let it escalate to a case. If the buyer hits you with some crap and says something that's completely not true, let's say you sold a phone, they're trying to say, oh, it's broken, it's not working, and you knew it wasn't the case, don't wait or decline the return, because what will happen is they'll just open a case and eBay will say, yeah, you have to return this item. 100% of the time, it doesn't matter, they will. Now, what you can do is get on the phone with eBay and try and get a decent rep and plead your case and provide evidence. And that's the best thing you can do. I've had issues like this. It's going to happen from time to time. The best thing you can do is just keep calling them until you get a decent rep that hears you out and understands what you're saying. You're going to get a bunch of overseas workers who just read off a script, but every now and then you'll get someone who's actually competent and will be trying to help you. So that's the best thing you can do. Sometimes you will just get screwed. It's very little. And when you do, just make sure you call. It's just try and plead your case as much as possible. Get someone who's competent to help you. But if you get a return request, just accept it immediately. Or actually what you should do is just offer a partial refund first to see if you can avoid the return, again, because returns will boost up your service metrics and that in a negative way, right? The return rates will get higher and then you could risk being in my position paying extra fees, which you don't want to do. So that's why you do that. Like I said, offer a partial refund first. Even if it's a bit pricey, just pay it. Remember the service metrics. It's really not worth getting those higher. And if you get screwed, you can try calling eBay, getting on the phone. As I just said, a lot of it's automated. There's some situations you win, others you do not. Just do the best you can. Do your due diligence. Try and save yourself as much as possible. You have to absolutely look out for yourself on the eBay platform. And while a lot of the things I've been saying sound really doom and gloom, I can't say enough good things about eBay. It's absolutely essential to my business and it's been a huge part of what I do. And I highly recommend it. But in these instances, these are some best practices for what to do when you get in a bad situation like this. It sucks. You just got to do what you got to do. Now, shipping packages. We'll get into why Gronk was on the screen in a second, but I have a tutorial on my course. If you want to figure out how I ship packages, I use third-party software. I use Pirate Ship. Highly recommend that. But if you want specifics like how I'm packing up items, how I'm printing out labels, by all means, just check out the free course. There's a whole section on it you can go to. If you want my shipping supplies list, it's free. phoneflippers.com/supplies. You can see the supplies I use for shipping phones. There's 1,000 ways to skin this cat. I don't think my way is the best way. It just works and it's what I've done. So I repeat it. Just pick a way to ship your phones and then repeat it. So on repeat or laptops, whenever you ship a laptop, just ship them all the same way. That way you can order a lot of the same supplies, have them on deck. Don't break the bank on shipping supplies. Don't be running into like Staples or Target every time you ship an item for a specific box, or worse, paying the shipping companies like UPS, USPS for their package supplies because it's a terrible deal. You'll lose so much money doing that. But just pack it well. I haven't had damaged packages in the past and I always pack my items well. But a reason for that is just like assume these UPS guys are just Gronk spiking your packages in the cement, in the pavement. So I've had devices arrive like shattered, destroyed. And I pack my stuff really well. Like you would literally have to Gronk spike it to potentially damage it. And I'll have people message me showing it's horrifically damaged. Now, whether they got the item and dropped it within a couple of days and then try to scam me, or it was the postal service, regardless, you just want to make sure it's packed well and not damaged. Because if you're shipping things that arrive damaged and get bad feedback, your eBay account's going to tank and you're going to be done for. And you're going to lose money on the return. So there's just no reason not to do your due diligence and pack these items well. And again, just assume the worst in this situation. Talk about feedback now. It's not as important, honestly, as I thought. When I first got in, I thought feedback was everything. So if I got a bad feedback, I thought I was cooked. Honestly, it's not as important as the service metrics because eBay is not going to actually dock you for feedback. But what's going to hurt you with feedback is if it gets super low, no one's going to trust you as a seller and want to buy from you. So it's going to be hard to sell things if you're at like 70% feedback. And I think it would be pretty hard to go below 95%, truthfully. That's 1 out of 20. I think mine's like 99%. You'll have people who just leave bad feedback for no reason or get mad about something. But if you just pack things well and they're just as good, if not better, as described, it's going to be really hard for you to accumulate any sort of bad feedback. So don't worry too much about it. Just do a good job and feedback will take care of itself. Now, if you're new at the start, I do recommend you message buyers for feedback, maybe a week or so after the package delivers. Try and build it quickly. I've even seen people leave like a handwritten note in the box and say, thank you for your order. If you would, just leave us feedback. That way you build it up quickly, get yourself out of the scam territory, 1, and then 2, build up a reputation so that people don't think you're a scammer either, which is twofold. So both of those things are going to help you quickly. Basically what I just said is quicker you build that, the quicker you get out of that zone, that sub like 40, 50 feedback zone, which once you get, it's not the worst thing in the world, but once you get out of there, things just get exponentially better for you. Now, customer service. The customer is always right. That's my key point with customer service. Customer's always right. Customer's always right. So I put that 3 times. I still struggle with this to this day. You heard some of my stories. I've dealt with some horrible customers. I mean, the worst. Most of the time on eBay, 99% of the time, people are great, no issues whatsoever. And then you'll get that 1% that's just in some sort of mood. They're having a terrible day. They're trying to take you down with them. And they just come at you with the most ridiculous thing you ever heard out of nowhere. So in this situation, you're going to get pissed off. I get pissed. I'm ready to send something back. And then you just have to stop yourself. There's no positive gain from like freaking out on a customer. You almost have to just disarm their anger by like remind them you're a human and that you're so sorry. Like be overtly over the top apologetic to the point where like make them like beat yourself up so much about it that they like can't say anything worse because you've already taken it there. And then they'll eventually just come around. They'll calm down. They'll be reasonable as well. Again, you have to protect yourself in situations of scam as best as possible, but just assume the customer's always right. Put yourself in their shoes when you can. And like I said, the customer's always right until they aren't, but you should still assume they're right pretty much every time. And even if you know they're wrong, like I said, if you're getting scammed, you're getting screwed, you got to fight like hell, do what you can to save yourself. But put Kenny Rogers, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away. Sometimes you got to run. So just be smart. Don't die on hills for like $20. Just live to see another day. It's never worth it. I'm still working through this. This is one of the toughest things, but you got to look at the big picture. Just live to see another day. Take your L. Put the ego aside when it, wants to come through and tell someone else how terrible they are. And the only thing worse would be to lose your eBay account along with losing your money. Maybe someone's adamant about like a $30 partial refund. Just give them the refund. Live to see another day. Keep your eBay account in good standing. Don't end up like me paying extra fees. It's a whole lot more than $30. Congrats. You're now a certified eBay expert. I've tried to pour everything I know about eBay, especially regarding phone flipping and electronics flipping, in this video. Just don't make the same mistakes I did, please. I'm begging you. It's some of the worst experiences in my life going through that. Don't go through that. Keep your account in good standing. Do it the right way from the start. You're going to have nothing to worry about. You'll be completely fine. You'll actually have a very pleasant experience with eBay, as I have had for most of the time, outside of some of those stories I told. And of course, join the community. You can go to phoneflippers.com, get the help you need with your phone flipping business. Got a few options for you there, whether you want to work with me directly, whether you want to just join the free group, completely up to you. Whatever you need is there. I also have a free course on the channel, which will be linked below. So whatever you're looking to do with your phone flipping business, I've been there, done it, for the most part. As you could probably tell from this video, the highs, the lows, I'm pretty familiar with most of it. So if it's something you're interested in, I would highly recommend checking out phoneflippers.com. It's just designed to help people like you maybe start your phone flipping business or scale one up if you've already started. Like I said, I'm doing typically over 10K a month in profit these days. So something you're interested in, definitely check it out. Check out the free course. And I hope this video was helpful. Again, just don't make the same mistakes I made on eBay. And thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.